Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a major winter storm which is going to be moving throughout parts of the Tennessee Valley into parts of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, and it's currently sitting over parts of Louisiana and Arkansas, bringing some of those areas some heavy ice, sleet, and snow for some of those areas. We're going to be giving you my snow, ice, and rainfall forecast in today's video, as well as timing this event out for you guys and giving you my general ideas on what I think could happen with this event. So here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like, and it is still active, but definitely nowhere near as active as it was just a couple days ago, where we had those winter storm warnings, wind chill warnings up for pretty much the entire country. At some point we had wind chill warnings and wind chill advisories that went down for much of the central part of the country, so you guys are still dealing with very cold temperatures, but not to the extent where you would get some wind chill advisories or warnings to be put up. We currently have some winter storm warnings that are up for much of southern and eastern Texas, back through Oklahoma, Louisiana, much of Arkansas, and then back up through into parts of the Mid-Atlantic and the Tennessee Valley. That's the general area that has some winter storm warnings currently in place. We have some winter storm watches from southern New England to about Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware, so that area is where you have those winter storm watches. Those will likely be upgraded to some warnings later today. We have winter weather advisories on either side of the warnings, so on the northern and the southern side of the warnings we have a thin line of some winter weather advisories. That's where you might see some wet snowflakes mix in, or you might just see a little bit of ice, and that's mainly why you have those winter weather advisories in place. We also have some winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories back through the Northwest and parts of the Southern Rockies. And then we have some avalanche warnings in effect for Utah, Idaho, and into Montana. Now, your records for the lower 48 yesterday were in multiple places across Florida where they had the high temperature for the entire United States. 87 degrees was your high temperature, split across 3 different areas. Fort Lauderdale, Florida, they got to 87 degrees. West Palm Beach, Florida, also got to 87 degrees. And Atlantis, Florida, they also got to 87 degrees. All of those areas are right in and around the Miami area in southeastern Florida, and we had completely opposite temperatures up in Minnesota, 5 miles east of Siegel Lake, Minnesota. They got to negative 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Your precipitation report, your highest report yesterday was 4 miles northwest of Jacksonville, Arkansas. They got 3.2 inches of melted precipitation. So if you were to melt down all the snowfall, the ice, and whatever rain they might have gotten, that's how much precipitation you would have gotten. So it's a rough estimate of how much you would have gotten. There were many 3+ inch amounts if you were to melt down, of course, all the snow cover, all of the ice cover, and any rain that they might have gotten over Arkansas, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and Texas. There were many 2+ inch reports for some of those areas. And the highest snowfall report was in Alta, Utah, where mainly in the eastern areas of that city, where they got to 47 inches of snowfall. And that's mainly, again, in those higher elevations. Some of those lower lying areas, they still got some snowfall, but definitely not as much as that 47 inch report. Now, here's what the current radar looks like, and let's kind of break it down for you guys. This is a rough estimate using this radar software. This is AccuWeather's radar, and just to give you a rough estimate of what's happening. Now, these exact boundaries aren't set in stone, so you could be dealing with, and we really have no way to confirm this except for individual reports. You could still be seeing snow if you're living within this area, or you could be dealing with ice, or you could be dealing with even rain in some of those areas further to the south. This is a general idea of what's happening, and it's trying its best. Some of these radar softwares aren't the most accurate, but it gives you a decent idea of where the heavier snowfall, sleet, mixed precipitation is setting up. We actually have some thunderstorm activity back through Louisiana and southeastern Texas, but mainly it's the ice precipitation that's taking over right now. We have over central Louisiana and northern Louisiana some of that icy activity moving through. We also have some fairly heavy snow that's been setting up on the radar for the past while. Now, if you do live within this area, if you could, in the comment section, it would just be nice if you guys could confirm if that is snow or if it's mixing in with sleet or ice, because these radars haven't been quite too accurate with the precipitation types, mainly because of all this freezing rain. It's really messing them up. So if you do live within that area, it would just be nice if you could leave a comment down below telling me if that is actually indeed snow, or if it is mixing in with some sleet or even ice pellets. So here's what the current high resolution European model is showing, and let's zoom this up to about 6 p.m. Central Time tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So We're dealing with some of that snow entering the Tennessee Valley. I will tell you that the European model is the most south of all these models, so it doesn't really switch a lot of those areas over to snow. It brings most of the heavier snowfall just a little bit further to the south, not too far to the south, but generally it is the further south track. We're going to show you a couple different models that have more of a less suppressed track. So we have some of that freezing rain on the very bottom of your screen with, again, that snow further to the north. As we head forward, this would be by early tomorrow morning on Thursday. We're dealing with some of that icy precipitation moving through parts of Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, and that's where you could be dealing with some real issues. Extreme southeastern Kentucky, back through some of the higher elevations of eastern Tennessee, and up through into parts of North Carolina and Virginia. You really have to watch out for that because a couple areas, even in south central Virginia, north central North Carolina, the National Weather Service is indicating over half an inch of ice. So we really have to watch out for that. Half an inch of ice is a lot of ice. Half an inch of snow isn't that much, but with ice, it's so much denser. It really has, it's really more compact than snow, and that can really bring down some of those power lines. It can really increase the weight of those trees, so they can fall much easier. So you really have to watch out with ice. Even if you get a tenth of an inch of ice, that's enough to cause some slick roadways. So you really want to watch out when you're getting over a tenth of an inch, even over a quarter of an inch, or even over half an inch of ice. Some of the National Weather Service forecasts call for as much as 6/10 of an inch of ice. So that is really a lot of ice, and you guys really need to be careful if you do live within that area. Now, this would be by Thursday morning. We're still dealing with more of that snow back through into parts of Connecticut, southernmost New York, and into parts of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Northern Virginia, and into West Virginia as well. We have some freezing rain back through southern Virginia and north central North Carolina. This snow really isn't going to be too much of a concern. Of course, it will cause some real issues on the roads, but I'm more concerned about this because this is a lot more dangerous. This ice down in Virginia and North Carolina is a lot more dangerous than even 8-10 inches of snowfall. Ice is really hard to get rid of unless you pre-treat the roads or sidewalks or your driveway. So it's really hard to get rid of ice. So that can really be a lot more of an issue than any snow that you will get. This would be by Thursday earlier in the afternoon. Later in the morning, early into the afternoon, we're dealing with some fairly moderate to heavy snowfall back through southern New Jersey, northern Delaware, Maryland, and into northern Virginia by this point. Here would be by Thursday in the mid-afternoon, getting into the evening hours. We're dealing with heavy snowfall. By the way, in this darker blue right here, this is an inch plus per hour, so about an inch to 2.5 inches of snow per hour. So if that sits over your area for even just an hour or two, you're putting down maybe 2 to about 4 inches of snowfall within that time frame. We're going to really have to watch out for that because wherever that band sets up, if this is a little bit further north, a little bit further south, that's going to be the area where you get the most snowfall. We're also dealing with that heavy freezing rain. Luckily, some of that freezing rain might be washing away over parts of North Carolina and Virginia due to some of that rain and that switchover, but still some parts of Maryland, Delaware, into southern New Jersey are dealing with some that ice still, and then into northern New Jersey, southern Pennsylvania, West Virginia, into Ohio and Kentucky, you're dealing with more of that snow, and that snow is going to continue fairly lightly to moderately over parts of the coastal Northeast. Now we're going to see another surge of cold, more moist, warmer air out of the south. So this is your next system, and you can barely see it on your screen. But this is going to start moving north. So you think it's done by Friday early in the morning. The radar's starting to clear, but we actually have this next area that might go back through Friday morning into Friday in the afternoon, and that's going to surge up further to the north. So it might still be snowing all the way until Saturday morning over some of these areas. So this might be a 36-48 hour event for some of these areas, and you're going to see the radar starts to fill in again. It's going to be more light and moderate this time around. We're not going to have such intense precipitation with this, but still, even if you are snowing lightly at maybe a quarter inch per hour for 12 hours, that's another 3 inches of snowfall right there. So you see that snow just kind of sit over those same areas. This would be by Friday morning, Friday early afternoon, and we're still dealing with some of that snow for the coastal Northeast, and you get into the evening hours, still snowing. Even after dark, it's still snowing over parts of southeastern New England, coastal Maine, getting in on some of the snow, and finally it starts to exit by Saturday morning, although if you live in some parts of New England, it's still snowing by early on Saturday morning before it eventually departs. So here's what the model is showing for snowfall, and this is the model that we just looked at, the European model. And again, this is the most the further south of all of these models, at least with the track. Now, some of the models actually have the heaviest snow even further south than this, especially the GFS model, but we're going to show you that in just a little bit. So it has a band of 6+ inches right through here, and we're going to really have to watch out for this. I think either way, most of these areas, basically from Boston down to about central Pennsylvania, down through into Kentucky, and then back further to the north, this area generally, you can maybe move the southern line a little bit further to the north, is going to be under 4 to 8 inches of snowfall, but where that 6+ inch line sets up is going to be the real question, whether that sets up more kind of like this, or whether it sets up a little bit further to the south, somewhat like this. We're going to really want to watch out for that, because this will be a fairly big issue. Now, another thing that I'm watching closely, just watch out for this area right here, because there is a lot of uncertainty with this. Some models show 6 inches, other models show 1 or 2 inches. So I'm watching out for this area, as well as this area, and then also for that freezing rain area further to the south. There's 3 main things that I'm watching out for in this event. So I'm going to leave those circles on, see what the models do. So you can see how the GFS increases snowfall for some of those areas in Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and central upstate New York. It decreases some of that snowfall through that middle bubble, and then over the mid-Atlantic really pumps up more snowfall. This is the only model that's doing that, so we might not want to trust it too much, because if this is the only model that's showing this, there's not much supporting that, and there's not many models actually showing that as well. If we look at another model, here's what the Icon model is showing. Look at this. There's barely anything here, maybe 1 or 2 inches of snowfall. There's fairly similar to what the GFS and the European model were showing here, and it's not showing as much snowfall for some of the mid-Atlantic states. So for Maryland, Northern Virginia, maybe 3 to 5 inches of snowfall if the Icon model were to be correct. Here's what the official National Weather Service forecast is as of right now, and of course you're going to want to update this and check this on your own. Go to the National Weather Service's page and just click on your specific location, and they'll give you an updated forecast. They update this regularly, at least twice a day for most of the offices, but even when there's a storm, they maybe update it 4 or 5 times a day at times. So you can definitely go check out your local National Weather Service. This is just as of when I'm recording, and they have a band of 6+ inches, which I fairly agree with, although I think their northern extent of this is a little bit too far to the north. I think that 6-inch line might not get as far north as about Connecticut, and then I think it'll maybe taper off from there. I don't think it'll get much further north than there, although of course it could still happen. I think maybe these areas get 2 to 4 inches or less of snowfall. Some of these areas further to the south, they're also showing maybe about 2 to 5 inches of snowfall for many of those areas, and they're showing some pockets in Pennsylvania and West Virginia that maybe get closer to 8, 9, 10 inches of snowfall. Now, here is my ice forecast for this event. Now, I'm expecting under 1/10 of an inch of snowfall for many of these areas from New Jersey and Pennsylvania southward into the northernmost parts of upstate South Carolina, northeasternmost Georgia, all the way up through North Carolina and Virginia. And then I have another area through Kentucky, central Tennessee, back through Alabama and Mississippi, and areas further to the south of there. That's where I'm expecting under 1/10 of an inch of ice. So this will still cause some issues on the roads, although I think it is still drivable in, and you could still definitely manage with this. It won't be too bad of an ice storm if this were to just be the case. But this is where I think it might get a little bit more serious, and this is where you might want to consider just staying inside for a little bit until this all melts away. 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch of ice for these areas, and that's from central and southern New Jersey down through another area in Maryland, Washington, D.C., through Virginia and North Carolina, and one more area there for northern and central Mississippi back through southern Arkansas. And you can't see it on the map, but I would extend that into northeastern Louisiana. Here's a 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch of ice, and I think there might be a little pocket in north central parts of Mississippi, as well as another area in northern and western North Carolina and southern Virginia. This is really not going to be too good of a scenario right here if this were to play true, and here to be the 1/2 inch plus area, and maybe even up to 6/10 of an inch of ice. A few areas could even get more than that, unfortunately. So this is where I'm thinking you might get over 1/2 an inch of ice. According to all the guidance that I've seen, most of the models are indicating that at least 4/10 or 5/10 of an inch of ice for these areas. So If you live within this area, you might really want to take this carefully and definitely apply some rock salt onto the sidewalks, your driveway, anywhere that you can, because all of that will help stop the ice from accumulating as much. And that's definitely some really helpful things to do when you're in dealing with one of these ice storms. So here's my snowfall forecast. I'm expecting under an inch of snowfall, maybe just some wet snowflakes or a light coating or dusting of snow all through this area from Texas and Oklahoma northeastward to coastal Maine there. Here's my 1 to 3 inch area, and you can see the northern extent of that. Again, this is going to be something that I'm really going to watch. It does not get that far to the north. You see it gets maybe into southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire, back through central upstate New York, but it really doesn't get much further north than there. I'm also expecting 1 to 3 inches for many of these areas back through the northeast, the mid-Atlantic, into the Tennessee Valley, and back through parts of Arkansas, and that would even extend into a little bit of Louisiana as well. 3 to 6 inches of snowfall here from Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, northeastward to about southern New England there. And again, it really stops right around Massachusetts and central New York. That's where I think you might start to get onto that cutoff line where you're not getting as much snowfall because it's just too cold, too dry for some of those areas. That's where I think you won't get as much snowfall. 3 to 6 inches for this entire area for much of the coastal northeast, back through the mid-Atlantic into areas like West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee. That area is where I'm expecting 3 to 6 inches of snowfall. And then here's my 6 to 12 inch area, and this is going to be more of a 6 to 8 inch event for a lot of these areas. You might see a couple pockets in central Pennsylvania, eastern West Virginia, where you get maybe over 8 inches of snowfall, but generally it's going to be a 6 to 8 inch event for a lot of these areas, and that includes parts of Long Island, northern and central New Jersey, back through southern Pennsylvania, western and northwestern parts of Maryland, western Virginia, and eastern West Virginia there. That's where I'm expecting 6+ inches of snowfall. Here's my rainfall forecast, under an inch of rain for all of these areas in the southeast from that snow line southeastward. That's where you're going to see at least some rain out of this event. 1 to 2 inches for that exact same area. That's where most of these areas are going to be dealing with at least an inch of rain, and even a 2 to 3 inch stripe from Georgia up through central and eastern parts of South Carolina and into eastern North Carolina, as well as maybe even into southeastern parts of Virginia there. So that's where I'm expecting 2+ inches of rainfall. So that is going to wrap it up for today's forecast. It was a bit of a longer video because we had a lot of information to get through. I'll keep you updated with the storm and all the future upcoming storms because we're in a very cold and snowy and very interesting upcoming pattern. I'll be covering it all on my channel. If you do enjoy the content, please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.